one thing, you have one of the great progressive trade union leaders in America. Brothers and sisters, we got some problems in this country. We have an administration that is leading us to oligarchy, an administration that is leading us to an authoritarian form of society, that is leading us toward kleptocracy. And what I see happening, and I was just in Kenosha yesterday, we were in Altoona, Wisconsin earlier today, I see this incredible, you know how many people we have here? We have a bunch of rooms. We have over 6,000 people. But Republicans as well, saying we fought for too long and too many people died for democracy. We're not going to stop. So it's a funny thing that we are right here in Abraham Lincoln High School. And I thank the high school for allowing us to use their facilities. I want to tell you a story. In Vermont, on Memorial Day, I usually go to a parade, a beautiful parade, one of the largest in the state, in a town called Vergennes, Vermont, the northern part of the state. And at the end of the parade, people assemble at the town green, and people give speeches, and the organizers always bring up some kids from the high school to say a few words. And when they ask the kids from the high school to say, one of the speeches is to recite Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. You all remember that? Let me remind you what he said, because it was really prescient and it was really quite extraordinary. Here he was in 1863, I think it was a few days after the terrible Battle of Gettysburg. Thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of soldiers had died in the fight against slavery. And he looks out on that field, and this is what he says, and you'll all remember this. He said that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. And that is why we are here today. We're here today to, in fact, make sure that after so many people in our country have fought and died for democracy, that we are going to stay a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. I want to tell you what we are up against. If you want to know what this struggle is about, and I think you all do. I want you to think back just 6 or so weeks ago when Donald Trump was inaugurated. Now, think about who the people were. Now, I had a box seat. For whatever reason, I got pushed to the front of that. I was like 3 feet away. And right behind Trump, sitting behind him, were the 3 wealthiest people in America. Mr. Musk, Mr. Bezos, and Mr. Zuckerberg. That's not all. Behind them were 13 other billionaires end the world. And instead of a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, we have now become a government of the billionaire class, for the billionaire class, and by the billionaire class. That is what, brothers and sisters, we are taking on. And I want to say something that I really fully do not understand. Maybe we have some psychiatrists in the audience, and I mean that seriously, who can help us here. Look, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to live comfortably. Nothing new about that. In this country today, in Vermont, breaks my heart, and I'm sure in Michigan, we have major addiction problems, right? We all know people who are addicted to drugs and what's happening to their lives. We know people who are alcoholic. We know people who smoke too much, people who are overweight, eat too much, people who have addictions. But I will tell you what the most serious addiction is in this country. It's a smart group of people. It is the addiction of greed by the billionaire class. Now you might think that if somebody had a few $100 million, had their own jet plane, had their own island, or whatever these guys do, it might be enough. But it is never enough. They are addicted to more and more and more, and they don't care how many people they step over in order to satisfy their greed. Right now, what they are in the process of trying to do, and that's why I'm here in Warren, to stop them, what they want to do is at a time when we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had, when the billionaire class, the people on top, have never, ever, ever had it so good. What they want to do is give over $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%, and they do that by cutting $880 billion from Medicaid, over $200 million from nutrition and other programs that the working class. So in other words, this is the Robin Hood proposal in reverse. Instead of taking from the rich, giving to the poor, they're taking from the poor and giving them to the rich. We ain't gonna let that happen. I want to explain for a moment what $880 billion in Medicaid means. It means that when in the midst of the healthcare crisis, millions of children will be thrown off of the health insurance they have. If you have a mom or a dad in a nursing home, or somebody who may need nursing home, understand that 2 out of 3 people in nursing homes get there through Medicaid payments. Cut Medicaid, it's going to be harder to get people into nursing homes. Quality of care will deteriorate. We have 32 million people in community getting their health care in community health centers, something I've worked very hard on, primary health care. 40% of the revenue for community health centers comes from Medicaid. Slash Medicaid, it'll be harder for millions of people to get the primary care, the dental care, the vision care that they need. We are not going to allow them to slash Medicaid in order to get back to their is that all of these congressional districts have Republican members of Congress who won by a very slim vote. Your congressman is Mr. James. Apparently you know Mr. James. So my request of Mr. James is very simple. I'm from Vermont and I'm here doing a town meeting in Warren, Michigan. Mr. James, I think your constituents here in Warren would love to do a town meeting speak, you have the right to ask him questions. And I think the question that is most on people's minds is, why would any member of Congress vote for massive tax breaks for billionaires and then cut Medicaid, education, and nutrition? Programs, they're going after Social Security. I think I speak for every member of the Senate telling you that we get calls every single day from seniors, people with disabilities saying, I'm trying to reach Social Security, I've got a problem, I want to talk to somebody, it's taken forever to do that. In fact, shamefully, some 30,000 people die every year waiting for an understaffed Social Security. They are way understaffed today to approve disability benefits. You got that? So people are sick, they're on disability, takes them forever to get their issue dealt with, and they die in between. What Musk and Trump are proposing are massive cuts to Social Security staffing, which would make it harder for people to get their claims addressed. That would mean more people will die. That is not acceptable. And I'll tell you what else they're trying to do. One of the honors of my Senate life was I chaired for a while the U.S. Senate Committee on Veterans Affairs. I had the opportunity to meet people, great veterans, not only from Vermont, but all over the country. And I think no matter what your political view may be, I think there is nobody or very few people in America who would disagree that when a man or a woman puts their lives on the line to defend us, we honor our commitment to those veterans. Mr. Musk, the VA has announced that they intend to lay off 83,000 employees in the veterans. That will mean for veterans to go into VA health care, a deterioration in the quality of care they get. For veterans who are waiting for their benefits, it will take them longer to get. Now, just yesterday, Veterans of Foreign Wars, the second largest veterans organization in the country, said, quote, we now call upon VA to reconsider its planned reduction of 83,000 employees. The VFW is right. I call on the Trump administration, rescind that order. Medicaid, they have $230 billion in cuts to nutrition programs. Now you tell me, in what universe, in what world, in what religion is it acceptable to give tax breaks to the very richest people and cut food programs for hungry kids? That is disgusting and grossly immoral. Obviously, one of the ways you dismantle programs is you cut staffing. You cut massive amounts of workers in Social Security and VA that can't deliver the services that people need. So right now they are in Trump and Musk are in the process of laying off hundreds of thousands of federal employees. And put yourself, we have any federal employees right here? Yeah. All right. And we thank them for their service. I can tell you that it's not hard to imagine. You're a federal employee. Everyone's on pins and needles. They're wondering, they're going to get a letter from Mr. Musk tomorrow telling them that they're gone. People have worked for years. People have done great work. Gone. Out on the streets. Now, I want you to think for a moment. If Mr. Musk can do this arbitrarily, fire hundreds of thousands of federal employees, think about what will happen when the technological revolution of artificial intelligence and robotics really gets hold in this country. Think about it. Everybody knows that this revolution is coming. And that means that many millions of workers in the private sector are going to be displaced. If Musk can simply throw out onto the street, for no decent reason, hundreds of thousands of federal employees, what do you think they're going to do when robotics and artificial intelligence comes? They're going to replace those workers and they're going to throw them out on the street as well. This is a prelude to what they're going to do in the private sector. Now, I happen to believe that technology unto itself is not a bad thing. If it can result in increased worker productivity, that's great. But what we want to make sure is that workers benefit from that worker productivity. Hey, we got a machine to replace you. We don't need you anymore. You're out on the street. Now, what we're up against is not only the incredible greed of the billionaire class, we're up against something that we really have never experienced in this country. And I'm not going to stand up here and tell you with a straight face that politicians never lie. Never stretch the truth a little bit. Occasionally that happens. But what we're up against right now, and this is enormously important, is we're up against a phenomenon that we have never seen, and that is the big lie. The big lie is not just stretching the truth. Big lie is not just fibbing. The big lie is creating a parallel universe, a set of ideas that either have no basis in reality or in the great scheme of things are nowhere near the most important concerns that the American people have. What some of these people on the right are doing is saying outrageously false statements. They say it over and over again, and then they have the right-wing social media blast it out to hundreds of millions of people until people actually believe it. And then, rather than having the kinds of discussions and debate that we should have in a democratic society, what are the issues? You have your view, I have my view, let's debate, let's come up with some consensus, or we'll vote on it, whatever it may be. We spend half our lives trying to refute outrageous lies. Let me just give you a few examples, which you're familiar with. Trump claimed that the 2020 election was stolen from him, and that he won by a landslide. A lie. All of you remember that terrible January 6th insurrection when they tried to Trump claimed that that was a day of love, and by the way, pardoned all of those insurrections. Trump has claimed that millions and millions of started a horrific war. To give you an idea how bad this is, a couple of months ago, and I was involved in this, there was what we call Washington a continuing resolution, a CO, keep the government going. And people, Democrats and Republicans, worked together 4 months, and we had our chairman of the Health and Education Committee, a lot of provisions in there which would have cut the cost of prescription drugs, would have expanded healthcare, et cetera, et cetera. We were involved in that. But anyhow, months and months of discussion, debate, arguments, finally an agreement was reached. Literally the day before that was going to be voted on and passed in the House, Mr. Musk sent out on Twitter emails that said there was a 43% increase in salaries for members of Congress. Tell your member of Congress not to vote for it, they're going to get a 43% increase. A total lie. There was a 3.4 inflation, that's all it was, percent increase. Total lie. And as a result of what Musk did, and the emails that he sent out, Republicans refused to go forward, and that bill died. And it doesn't stop. And some of you have heard Trump's State of the Union speech. He claimed he picked up on something that Musk had started, and that is, you all heard it, millions, zillions of people who are 200, 150 years of age, 500 years of age, they're all receiving Social Security benefits. Two questions. Why would he do that? What is the thing number? What is, if you say to people, the average American, you know, the Social Security system is really corrupt. You have all these people at 200 years of age, they're getting it all corrupt. What is the goal?
Don't believe it.
All right, I can raise one person, raise their hand, I can't hear anybody. Yeah. It's right, yes. That's it. Yes. What else you got? Yeah. That's right. All right. All of this stuff is to tell you, give up on your government. Government can't do anything. It's all fraud. Social Security is broken. It's fraudulent. Medicare, Medicaid, it's all. And if you do that, what is the end result? The privatization of everything. You're going to give all this stuff over to large corporations. So the truth is that well over 99% of Social Security checks are going out to the people who earn those checks. 70 million people. And nobody who is 150 or 200 gets a Social Security check. Absolute lie. Now, the purpose of all this lying is not just to push his right-wing ideology. It's more than that. It is, and this is big stuff that we got to say, like what they are trying to do is deflect attention away from the real issues, the very serious issues that the working class of this country is facing. Those are issues that Musk and Trump do not want to address because it's not in their financial interest to do so. So, as a case in point, Trump gave his State of the Union speech. It went on for about 28 hours, I don't know. It was the longest State of the Union, I think it was 100 minutes. And in his 100, and this is what is extraordinary, it's not what he said, it's what he didn't say. He spoke for an hour and a half, and he almost completely ignored the issues that are keeping working families up at night as they worry about how they are going to survive in these very difficult times. So let's do something radical. You ready to do something radical? today, okay? All right. We are the richest country in the history of the world, but you know what? 60%, 60% of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. Now, unlike Trump, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, and I know a little bit about that, as I expect many of you do. So what does living paycheck to paycheck mean? Tell me. Raise your hands. It means loud. Yes, right here. It means surviving. How do you survive? Yes. It means little money. What is it? Yes. Stress. All the money, yeah. Survival. Exhaustion. Fear. Fear of what? A fear of everything. What? Medical care. Yes, ma'am. No money for emergencies. Yes. Making difficult choices. Ma'am. Okay. All right, right there, yeah. No future. All right. Here is the reality. And I think you've all said it in a few minutes. Millions of Americans today are wondering how they're going to be able to pay their rent, and what happens if a landlord raises their rent. What do they do? Right? Rents are going up all over. What do you do if the landlord raises your rent? You got to move. Where are you going to move to? You got to take your kid out of school. Where's it going to go? You're going to go. People are worried that your child or your parent becomes sick. You can't afford to take that person to a doctor, or you cannot afford the prescription drugs that your mom or your kid may need. What's going on today in America is people are worried just something as simple, as basic. Your car breaks down. You got an old car, right? Your car breaks down. And the guy in the repair shop says it's going to cost you $1,000 to get it fixed. Now what happens if you don't have the $1,000? You're screwed! You can't get your car fixed. You can't get your car fixed, you can't get to work. If you can't get to work, you're going to lose your job. If you lose your job, how are you going to survive? That's because millions of people don't have $1,000 in the bank. In America today, and this is a remarkable fact, it is not just that our life expectancy, you all know life expectancy, how long we live, it's about 4 years shorter than people in other wealthy countries. And we should wonder why that is so. But here's something that is never talked about, and I want to throw that out to you. I want you to digest it. If you are working class in this country, your life expectancy, on average, will be 7 years shorter than if you're wealthy. You all understand what that's about? That means that being working class in this country, in many respects, is like a death sentence. You're rich, you're going to live a long life, you're working class 7 years shorter. Why is that? Stress. All right. What stress is about, stress is not some concept, oh, we're stressed out. Stress is a physiological reaction. And there is, doctors frame it as it's the disease of poor people who have to struggle every single day. Stress wrecks your body, and it has a terrible impact on your mind. If you have to worry every single day, how are you going to survive? How do I feed the kids? How do I pay the rent? What happens if I get a call and I have to be at work at midnight for the midnight shift? You add all that together, people are living on pins and needles, day after day, year after year. Stress kills. And in the richest country in the history of the world, millions of people should not have shorter lives than they otherwise should because of the economy that we have. But it's not just domestic policy that we have got to be concerned about under Trump. We are all proud. I think we wake up in the morning, we know that's part of who we are as Americans. We are proud that we are the longest standing democracy in the world. We are proud, and I mean this sincerely, that all over the world people read our Declaration of Independence, they read the Constitution, and they say, you know what, that's what we want our country to be like, a country that is free, a country that is forever. But I have to tell you that for the first time in our 250-year history, we have a president who is turning his back on democracy and allying us with authoritarians. No, Mr. President, Ukraine did not start this war. Zelensky is not a dictator. Vladimir Putin is. We must not abandon the people of Ukraine who were invaded by Putin. This country must stand for democracy, not dictatorship. Terrible attack by Hamas against Israel. 1,200 innocent people were killed. Israel had a right to respond. But Israel did not have the right to wage an all-out war against the Palestinians. Dead, and as a result of that war, well over 100,000 have been injured, and as a result of that war, the infrastructure, the healthcare, the schools, the water systems, the wastewater plants in Gaza have been virtually destroyed. Now, tragically, Trump wants to follow Biden's very mistaken policy and provide more weapons to Netanyahu's right-wing Islamist. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that Netanyahu does not get it. While we have got to be very vigilant every day as to what Trump and Musk and these guys are doing and fight back, that is not good enough. It's not good enough just to be on the defense. We have got to play offense as well. And here is a secret that the corporate media will not tell you. And that is the progressive agenda is wildly popular all over the country. It's exactly what the American people want. And at the top of the list, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you know that we have a corrupt campaign finance system. This is America. Billionaires should not be allowed to buy politicians. That Musk was able to contribute $270 million to Trump's campaign, and then his reward, he becomes the most powerful person in the government. opposition to independence feel strongly about. At a time of unprecedented income and wealth inequality, they don't want the billionaire class to get another nickel in tax breaks. When many millions of our people are trying to survive on starvation wages, the American people understand we've got to raise that federal minimum wage. Today, an abysmal $7.25 an hour to a living wage at least $15, $17 an hour. All over America, we got any trade unionists here? People in unions, trade unions? All right, thank you. All over this country, workers know that if they're going to earn decent wages, benefits, and working conditions, you got to have a union at your back. Unions have never been more popular than they are right now. What's going on is that many of these corporations are acting illegally in trying to prevent workers from joining a union. They're threatening them, they're threatening to move the plant to China, take them in back rooms, indoctrinating them, all of which is illegal. That is why we've got to pass legislation I just reintroduced called the PRO Act that punishes companies that act illegally for working for If you can believe it, hard to believe, but it is true. 22% of seniors in America are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. Half of seniors trying to get by on $30,000 or less. No, Mr. Trump, we ain't going to cut Social Security. We're going to expand Social Security. How many people in this room think our current healthcare system is working? We are spending twice as much per person on health care as the people of any other country, yet we got 85 million uninsured or underinsured. Many of you have large deductibles, right? All right. We have 60,000 people a year in America dying because they can't get to a doctor on time. All right, they get sick, they wait, they walk to the doctor's office, it is too late. The time is long overdue for this country to do what every other major country does, guarantee health care, all people have a human right. I need your help. We're going to reintroduce Medicare for all. Let's get it back. Their doctor cannot afford to fill that prescription. We pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than people in other countries. Congress has got to have the guts to take on Big Pharma and make sure that we cut prescription drug costs in this country by 50%. It's not radical, it already exists around the world. It is common sense. We live in a competitive global economy. We need the best educated workforce in the world. It's not just that we need more doctors and nurses and dentists. We need more carpenters and electricians and sheet metal workers. We need more teachers. When we have a desperate need for skilled workers, educated workers, that young people are going $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 or more in debt to get an education. Instead of giving tax rates to billionaires, let's make public colleges and universities tuition free. Despite what Mr. Trump may think, climate change, sadly, is not a hoax. It is an existential threat. We can create millions of good-paying union jobs by transforming our energy system into energy efficiency and sustainability. By the way, when we talk about freedom, and I hear that word a lot in Washington, D.C., you know what freedom means? It means that every woman in this country should have the right to control her body. And some of you may feel a bit hopeless. So let me say this. At this moment in history, this very difficult moment, despair is not an option. Giving up is not acceptable. That is what the oligarchs want you to do. Real change, the change that we have experienced over hundreds of years of our nationhood, only occurs when ordinary people stand up against oppression and injustice and fight back. That's how change. Change does not take place with the top one down, it's the bottom one up. And I want you to think, in this difficult moment, to understand that this is not the first time in American history that we have faced serious challenges. And I want you, and I don't want to be overly romantic here, but I want you to think back to the 1760s, 1770s, where you had these people here in the colonies, then colonies, and they said, you know what, we want independence. We want to be able to make our own decisions. And they stood up to the entire British Empire, the King of England, the most powerful guy on earth. And you know what? They beat him. I want you to think about the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, people in the abolitionist movement who said, you know what? Slavery must be abolished once and for all from this country. Very powerful people, and we were engaged in a horrible, bloody civil war. But we prevailed. Slavery was abolished. John Fane of the UAW was up here a few minutes ago, and I was just thinking, I was reading something today about the labor movement. All of you know anything about labor history. In the early parts of the 20th century, you know, we had kids, little children working in factories. We had workers working 7 days a week. We had workers who were paid horrible wages. And what workers said, you know what, we want to form a union. And what the companies would often do is fire these workers. They would have workers beaten up. Sometimes workers were killed because they wanted to form a union. I was just reading today, I don't know how many of you know this, that in 1936, when people were forming the United Automobile workers faced enormous opposition from General Motors and the other big automobile companies. You know what workers did? They actually took over GM's factories. They raised the sin, and as a result of that, the UAW was formed. As a result of that, other great unions were formed, and the unions helped create the American middle class. They struggled and they won. You all remember or read about the extraordinary bravery of Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement and their struggle against segregation. You all know the history of the women's movement. Women fought and died for the right to vote, for the right to control their own bodies. It was not an easy struggle. And we got the environmental movement and the gay rights movement. In other words, nobody, Frederick Douglass said that, nobody ever gives you freedom. You gotta fight for it. So yes, the oligarchs are enormously powerful. They have endless amounts of money. They control our economy. They own much of the media, and they have enormous influence over our political system. But from the bottom of my heart, I believe that if we stand together, we can beat them. Statement. He said, everything is impossible until it is done. You know, like, oh my God, it can't happen, it can't happen. Then it happens, oh, well, no big deal, you know, yeah, well, all right. So, well, I love you too. That in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, if we stand together, if we do not let the right wing divide us up by the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our religion, or our sexual orientation, if we stand together, fighting for an agenda that works for the working class of this country, nothing can stop us. By a staff member that right here in Warren, Michigan today, we have over 9,000 people. Overflow room, and then we got an overflow room. If the people not only in Michigan and Vermont, but all over this country, we're prepared to stand up, we're prepared to fight.